I drove 6 hours to hand my dad courtside tickets to the Lakers finals for his birthday. At dinner he toasted, "To my lucky son, still a disappointment, but rich now." My mom whispered, "Luxury gifts don't make up for being a loser." I stood up, took back the tickets, and left. This morning, he called me 67 times. Then his boss called too. The steakhouse was quiet except for the soft clink of silverware and the low hum of jazz humming through the speakers. I had driven 6 hours straight, no stops, no music, just the road and a single hope sitting heavy in my chest. Maybe, just maybe, this year, my father would finally look at me with something other than disappointment. I had the tickets tucked into my inner jacket pocket, 2 glossy, gold-edged courtside passes to the Lakers finals. Not nosebleed seats. Not behind the bench. Courtside. I knew he'd wanted this his whole life. I'd heard the stories every year. If I ever made it big, I'd be there. Front row, Jack Nicholson style. Well, guess what? I finally made it. And this was my way of saying, I'm here. I did it. See me. He sat across the table, big hands wrapped around a glass of scotch, his eyes scanning the menu like nothing around him mattered. My mother sat beside him, posture stiff and graceful, face unreadable as always. I cleared my throat, heart thudding like it did before every school report I ever gave, and slid the envelope across the crisp white tablecloth like I was offering my soul. "Happy birthday, Dad," I said, managing a smile. He didn't smile back. He just raised an eyebrow. "What's this?" he asked. "Just open it," I replied. He opened the envelope, pulled out the tickets, and stared at them. For a second, just one fleeting second, his eyes lit up. There it was. The look I'd been chasing since I was 10. But it didn't last. That flicker of pride died as quickly as it came. Then he laughed. Not the soft kind. The kind that echoed too loud and made people from other tables turn their heads. He held up the tickets like he was showing off a gag gift. "Look at this, honey," he called out to my mom, loud enough for strangers to hear. Our boy's finally throwing money around like he's got something to prove. Then he stood up, lifted his scotch glass high into the air like we were all part of his private roast. "To my lucky son," he announced proudly. Still a disappointment, but rich now. Laughter echoed around us. Strangers smiled awkwardly. I didn't. I felt my throat tighten. My skin burned. I looked at my mother, hoping, begging, for her to say something. Anything. Instead, she leaned in, smile painted perfectly on her face, and whispered coldly, "Luxury gifts don't make up for being a loser." And that was it. Something broke in me. Quietly. Not loud or dramatic. Just a clean internal snap, like a branch that had bent too long finally giving up. I stood up slowly. My dad still had the envelope in his hand, halfway to taking a sip of scotch. I reached across the table and plucked it from his fingers. He blinked. "I'll take those back," I said flatly. "What? Wait, what are you?" I thought maybe this time would be different. I looked at both of them. But I guess I'm the only one who ever changed. My mom rolled her eyes. My dad looked like he wanted to say something clever. But I wasn't sticking around for the encore. I turned, walked out of that steakhouse, and didn't look back. Outside, the night air was heavy and still. I climbed into my car, closed the door, and just sat there. The envelope lay on the passenger seat like a silent witness. For a long while, I didn't start the engine. I just stared straight ahead, through the windshield, watching them finish their dinner without me. Like I'd never even been there. Then I turned the key and drove off. Into the dark. Into the quiet. Into freedom. The next morning, I woke up to 67 missed calls. All from my dad. And one more, unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. When I played it back, my stomach sank. "Hello, this is Richard Gibbons. I'm your father's employer. I was told you had a pair of tickets to the Lakers finals. I'd like to speak with you. Please call me back." That's when I knew this wasn't just a birthday surprise. My dad had plans. And I had just ruined them. I didn't call him back. Not immediately. Not after the 67 missed calls. Not after the voicemail from his boss. I just sat at my kitchen table, coffee going cold in my hands, listening to the silence. It was the kind of silence that comes after a storm, still, but buzzing with unresolved tension. My phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. This time, his voice wasn't smug or mocking. It was panicked. "Son, please, just call me back, okay? I think we need to talk." For a moment, I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered his toast, his voice echoing in that restaurant, calling me a disappointment with a smile. I'd worked for everything I had. No handouts, no inheritance, no co-signed loans. Just me, grinding through late nights, ramen dinners, and failed startups until one hit. I wasn't lucky. I was relentless. And still, after all these years, I was the disappointment. No matter how high I climbed, I was still the kid who dropped out of college to chase a silly app idea. And now, suddenly, he cared? Suddenly, I was worth 67 phone calls? I went for a walk to clear my head. The streets of Pasadena were calm, lined with spring flowers and well-trimmed hedges. I walked past families laughing on porches, dads tossing baseballs with their sons, and felt the dull ache of everything I never got from mine. When I got back, there was a new voicemail, this time from his boss, Richard Gibbons. A polished voice, smooth and confident, the kind that sounded like it belonged to a man with a private jet and a vineyard. "Hi, this is Richard again. Your father mentioned you might have a pair of very rare tickets to the Lakers finals. I have some high-value guests in town and I'm in desperate need of those seats. If you're open to a discussion, I'm willing to make it worth your while. Call me back." I blinked. My jaw clenched. So that was it. That was the reason for the sudden urgency. Not because of guilt. Not because my father wanted to mend things. No, he wanted those tickets, for his boss. He was using me. Again. And now the man who raised me on belittlement and backhanded compliments had probably promised his boss those seats, courtside, no less, to impress him, maybe earn a promotion. I could almost hear him bragging, "My son runs a tech firm now. He's got connections, you know. Got me the best seats in the house." And if I didn't come through? That image would shatter. The perfect narrative he built around my success, one that only served his status, would come crashing down. And I'd be the reason. But wasn't that the truth? I'd always been the reason for his discomfort. Not because I failed, but because I succeeded without him. He couldn't control me. Couldn't claim credit. And that burned him. Now, finally, I held the upper hand. And this time, I wasn't giving it back. I wish I could say this kind of thing was new. But it wasn't. My dad had a way of dressing his cruelty in humor, always passing it off as just joking when he landed the hardest punches. Growing up, I learned that his love came with conditions: success, status, obedience. Anything less, and I was a burden. A problem. I remember my 12th birthday. I had spent weeks building a model rocket, carefully following the instructions, painting it, even naming it the Maverick. I was so proud. I ran up to him that morning, rocket in hand, beaming. He barely glanced at it before muttering, "Should have used your time studying instead of building toys." That one sentence crushed me. I didn't touch that rocket again. It sat on a shelf collecting dust until Mom quietly threw it away. My mom wasn't much better. She didn't mock, she dismissed. Her love was like fine china, reserved for display, not for use. She'd pat my head when guests were around, but behind closed doors, she echoed his words. "Why can't you be more like your cousin Dean? Full ride to law school. Now that's something worth bragging about." So I stopped trying to impress them. I started living for me. I left college after my second year, took a leap of faith, and poured my soul into building something that mattered to me. I lived in a cramped studio with paper-thin walls, $8 menu dinners, and coded until my fingers ached. Every failure taught me something. Every late night was a step forward. And then, it happened. One app. One idea that clicked. A platform for remote workers to find gigs, simple yet powerful. Within 6 months, we had 500,000 users. In a year, a venture firm bought us out. I paid off my debts, bought a house, and took a moment to breathe. But I never told them the full story. When I sent pictures of my new place, Dad's response was, "Well, money can't buy class." When I sent Mom a scarf from Italy, she replied, "It's too flashy, honey." They found ways to dim every light I lit. Still, this year, I thought maybe, just maybe, it could be different. It was Dad's 65th. A milestone. So I splurged. I got him the tickets, courtside seats to the NBA Finals. His team, the Lakers, playing in his home state. It wasn't just a gift. It was a gesture. A chance to connect. Maybe even heal. I drove 6 hours to hand them to him in person. No assistants. No courier. Just me, his son, showing up with hope in his heart. And that night, over dinner, as I watched his eyes light up opening the envelope, I let myself believe, just for a second, that he was proud. But then came the toast. And my mother's whisper. And just like that, the illusion shattered. I stared at the wall for hours that night. Sleep never came. Their words kept replaying in my head like a cruel broken record. Still a disappointment. Luxury gifts don't make up for being a loser. It wasn't just the insult, it was the certainty in their voices. As if they believed it, truly and deeply, and expected me to believe it too. But something was different this time. I didn't feel broken. I felt calm. Like a storm had passed and left me standing stronger on the other side. I had given them everything they could never give me, patience, forgiveness, a clean slate. And now they would learn what it meant to lose access to me. That morning, I called Richard Gibbons. Calmly. Professionally. Hi Richard, this is Ben. I got your message. Oh, thank God, he laughed. Your father told me you had a pair of tickets to the Lakers finals. I've got a couple of Fortune 100 guests flying in this week. You'd be doing me a huge favor, name your price. I paused for a beat, letting the silence weigh on him. I actually do have the tickets. But I won't be giving them to my father. There was silence on his end. Oh. I see. I'd be happy to transfer them directly to you, though. Consider it a gift, from one businessman to another. You've got good taste in clients. Richard chuckled, clearly relieved. Ben, I appreciate that more than you know. I forwarded the tickets instantly. No fuss. No theatrics. Just a quiet, clean move. The kind that makes the ground shift under someone's feet without them realizing it until it's too late. Then I made a second call, to Lakers event security. Hi, I'm the original ticket holder for seats A4 and A5 at the finals. I'd like to put a flag on them, only the names on the list are allowed in. No substitutions. They confirmed. Done. Then came the final piece of the plan. I posted a photo on LinkedIn, me and Richard Gibbons shaking hands in front of a downtown conference venue, captioned, "Great meeting today with one of the sharpest minds in media. Grateful for the opportunity to build new bridges. Hashtag NBA Finals, hashtag leadership." That post got hundreds of likes. A few news people picked it up. But more importantly, my father saw it. How do I know? Because 5 minutes later, my phone lit up. Dad, what did you do? Me, handled things. Dad, you're messing with my job, Ben. Me, no. I just stopped letting you take credit for my success. The typing bubbles blinked on and off, like he didn't know what to say. For once, he had no script. No quick comeback. Just silence. And for the first time in my life, I felt taller. Not because I had more money, not because of some power play, but because I had chosen myself. My peace. My worth. They taught me what cruelty disguised as love looks like. Now it was time they learned what boundaries built on self-respect felt like. The day of the game had arrived, and everything felt electric. The city was alive with energy. Cars honked as people zipped through downtown, dressed in their Lakers gear. The stadium was lit up like a beacon, a golden and purple glow surrounding the entrance. Inside, the courtside seats, once reserved for my father, were now occupied by Richard Gibbons, my father's business associate, and two of his high-profile guests. They were smiling, laughing, drinks in hand, enjoying the luxury of the moment. Meanwhile, I was in a private suite high above the court. I had come to enjoy the game, but my focus wasn't on the action below. No, I couldn't take my eyes off of the scene that was unfolding. The seats that were once meant for my father, my gift to him, had been snatched away. But the truth was, I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't upset. I was simply watching the karma unfold, and with each passing second, I could feel a deep sense of satisfaction growing in me. The post was met with an outpouring of support. My phone buzzed with notifications, and messages flooded in. Some were from old friends, others from strangers who had found inspiration in my journey. One message stood out. It was from a woman who told me that her son hadn't spoken to her in years because of her mistakes as a mother. She said my story gave her hope that someday, they might reconnect. I didn't know what to say. But something about it struck me, because it reminded me of the moment I had with my own father. I thought about how my life had been a mirror of so many others, people trying to prove their worth to someone who would never be satisfied, someone who would always find a reason to tear you down. But in letting go of the need to please them, I had finally found peace. I didn't return my father's calls. I didn't answer his voicemails. I let the silence speak louder than any word could. The final call I did receive, the one I answered, came from Charles Owens, my father's boss. He told me how much he had admired my appearance at the leadership conference and how my story had inspired many people. "We're interested in having you speak at more events, Ben. You've got a way of connecting with people." It felt strange, yet deeply validating. This was the same man who had once overlooked me, dismissed me, and belittled my achievements. But now, he was asking me for my input, my story. I ended the call, feeling a weight lifting. And then, I looked out at the horizon once more, breathing deeply as I watched the city come to life. The power had shifted. Not because I had done something extraordinary, but because I had simply stopped playing by their rules. That night, as I sat alone in my living room, a calm settled over me that I hadn't known in years. I was no longer running to prove myself to anyone. I had finally realized my worth. And somehow, that made all the difference. I didn't need their approval anymore. I had created my own version of success, and it was enough. As I turned off the lights and headed to bed, I thought of my parents. The only thing that remained was the echo of my father's final words, "Please, don't forget us." But I knew, deep down, that forgetting them wasn't the hard part. The hard part had been letting go. And that, finally, felt like freedom.